Welcome to LionHeart Talks, a series of podcasts from LionHeart.
Hi and welcome to the LionHeart Talks podcast. This is the 6-part series and it's all about well-being. And on this episode, we will be focusing on burnout and overwhelm. So I'm Melissa Gough-Rundle, I'm the Strategic Relationships Manager here at LionHeart, and today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Clare Davis. Clare, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi Melissa, and thanks very much. I'm a member of the support services team and I'm also a qualified coach, and I'm one of the ones that you would get through to when you contact the helpline.
That's brilliant. Clare, it's great to have you here. So today we're talking about burnout and overwhelm, a big subject, but it's something that we're hoping to embrace fully and run through. We're going to be looking at what the major problems are, how perhaps it might present itself, what will happen when they get in touch with support services, but also we're going to give some takeaways as well, so people can think about what the next steps might be if they are experiencing burnout and overwhelm. So to kick us off, when you have calls that come into the helpline which focus on burnout and overwhelm, someone's challenged with that, what kind of thing do you see most of all for in that situation?
Okay, suddenly I think the key thing, Melissa, is awareness that they're struggling to cope, that they feel they've no longer got control, perhaps in their work environments or altogether. Brain might be starting to go a bit fuzzy, they're aware of clammy hands, they're aware of suddenly the mind darting and not able to focus. It's gone from managing lots to being impacting on performance and how we're coping.
That's really interesting because there's mention there of both physical and probably mental symptoms as well, because sometimes we think of burnout and overwhelm just being mainly a mental thing, but actually it is manifesting itself as a in a physical way as well. And do you think then that some people might not recognise that that's the situation they're in?
Melissa, I think that is an excellent question, because what we're finding is surveyors generally are overloaded. It can become an essence of routine, and you don't realise that suddenly you're multitasking, you're juggling lots of plates and perhaps not getting there as quickly as you used to because you're used to that overdrive situation.
We are hearing that surveyors are really, really busy at the moment. They're really under a lot of pressure, and I think sometimes this becomes their normality, and then and it really does take quite a lot for them to think, well, actually, this isn't normal, and the way I'm feeling isn't normal. So, you know, when people get in touch, or should they get in touch with LionHeart, when they start to feel a bit like this, maybe have a discussion about what it is that they're feeling and the situation that they're in.
Very, very, very much, because there's always ways forward. Sometimes you can't always change the workload, but you can change some of your strategies. You can change a little bit about how you think about things. For instance, if you're in a high adrenaline situation, you might be saying to yourself, I don't know where to start. I'm running on thin ice. Well, what we'd say is, let's start somewhere. What's bothering you most? What's going round and round in your mind that's hard to let go? Or what one thing do you think might make the most difference? It could be so many different things depending on why someone comes.
And that again is what we were saying, wasn't it? Because it's a huge subject, and that internal conversation that you're having with yourself is that individuals probably do recognise that they are putting themselves under a lot of pressure, that there is something that's going on, and also some people might be reaching a little bit of breaking point as well, because we're not just talking about overwhelm, we are talking about burnout as well. So what kind of things could you suggest, maybe, if people feel they're getting to a situation that they just don't know, where they're going to go next?
If they're reaching complete overwhelm, possibly a complete lack of focus, feeling extra anxious, I would say there's the time to get support wherever you can. Now, that can be that chat to your manager, that open communication, share a little bit to see if they can vary things, to see if, because they might not be aware quite how you're feeling, okay? It might be coming to us, getting counselling, okay? It might be, if things are really bad and you're feeling particularly anxious, we might say, is it a good idea possibly to also see your doctor? Because burnout and overwhelm over a long period of time affects cortisone, literally affects the brain. And sometimes it's also helpful to have something that puts the balance back so that you are better equipped. So it really depends where you're at as to what could be most helpful.
Sometimes it's just having that confidence, that reassurance to actually reach out. And we hear that some people really don't feel comfortable about reaching out to their managers or to people at work. And that's why I think LionHeart is such a fantastic resource, that they can actually talk to us in confidence and they don't have to necessarily go to their manager straight away or go to their loved ones or the doctor, but they can reach out to us, and hopefully through some coaching, counselling or just general support, they can then look at taking next steps and getting themselves the help that they actually need.
Very much, Melissa. It isn't a one hat fits all. And as you said, this is what we're here for. And any conversation we are having with the member is in confidence. So if they want to stay with LionHeart, we would look at what's going to help them best. You know, how might they set up some time management? Are they looking after their well-being? You know, how is their lifestyle impacting on sleep? It's very much holistic, and that's what LionHeart is about.
That's really interesting, Claire, because I was going to ask you what kind of steps would you take someone through? So if they've reached out to LionHeart and we've kind of discovered that the biggest challenge they've got is overwhelm and that they're potentially heading towards burnout, do you want to kind of look at in a bit more detail about what it is that we might help them, might give them some strategies?
Okay. I mean, if they are heading to burnout, some of it might be, okay, what can you essentially cut out at the moment? It's, what you might call this sort of cropping back on to the essentials, so that how can you ease things a little bit? So that might be the initial, recognising that are they heading a little bit more to complete burnout, and in which case that is commitment, cropping, looking back and thinking, what can I cut back on? What is essential and what's not?
Sometimes that's quite a difficult decision when people are spinning a lot of plates. Sometimes being able to actually take that step back and say, I need to let go. I mean, there's probably an element of perfectionism in there as well, that they've got to succeed at everything. They've got to keep everything going. So that probably can be quite a difficult step to take. I mean, how would you typically deal with that with someone that you were talking to?
Well, maybe just trying to say to them, what do you think is the most essential thing to do at the moment? And then looking at the positive of the achievement of doing it, so that we're not looking at what isn't happening, but we're looking at what's essential, what might be make the most difference at the moment, and then breaking it down. Because if we're overwhelmed, the brain doesn't process and think as quickly. So you might bring it down. You might see what's the first few steps you can take, and it will be little by little going back up and climbing that mountain where you might feel you've been starting to slide down.
That's a great analogy, Claire, isn't it? Because I think once people they do manage to offload, they do manage to put down the baggage, as it were, and really focus on what they need to focus on and really hone in on that. I think you're right. It gives them that opportunity then to go back up that mountain, as you say. Do you find that some people have to completely switch off? Do you find sometimes that people need to completely step away for a while?
Yes, sometimes that is the case, and if they felt that, then again, you would indicate how understandable it is if you've had a build-up of stress over a long time. And I liken it to putting the gas back in the car. So it really is, okay, just telling people, telling work, telling your family, what do I need at the moment to be the best I can be moving forward? And as part of that, it's also what resources are there? Who can help me? There's us at LionHeart. There's, possible, your manager at work, or, sometimes there's information. It's what resources are out there that also, so that you're not going alone, what would give you the support you need, and exploring that. And as I said, sometimes that might be also going to see a doctor, but other times might not at all.
And I think it's almost having LionHeart to hold your hand, metaphorically speaking, through that process, because sometimes when you're overwhelmed, I expect it's difficult to put all of those things into place and kind of go through the stepping back, the delegation, making sure that you're looking after yourself, looking for opportunities to take time out. That isn't always easy, and when you're overwhelmed, I can imagine that it probably is going to be almost impossible. So having the support team at LionHeart there to walk you through it and actually say it's okay to let go, it's okay to step back a little bit and build back better, it really is that opportunity that they perhaps need. So it's really fantastic that they've got that ability to talk to LionHeart and do that. Claire, this is really interesting. I'm really enjoying this topic. It's absolutely fantastic. And I know that there are quite a few options that you've talked about with me, about what people can do in the where there's an immediate need. I think there are a number of options that we've gone through, and I wondered if you wanted to kind of take us through that.
Well, if there's immediate need, I mean, some of it, is literally, if I'm not sleeping well, if I'm not coping, the immediate need is acknowledging it and finding the resources and chatting it through. But it's also about, if you're in a crisis management, okay, what is the essential? What do I think is I can cope with at the moment? And being kind to yourself, because that is really important, because all of us face overwhelmed times. And so we start by saying, yes, I've been dealing with something brilliantly for a long time, but I can't keep going at quite that pace.
Yeah, I think that is really important, and I know that quite often when I'm in a busy situation, I've got my little Fitbit watch, and I give it a tap, and it lets me do a little breathing exercise. And so some people, they're like, oh, I don't need to do that. I don't need to take time out of my day. But when I actually sit down and do it, it makes a huge difference. It kind of gives you that opportunity to step back. It stops your mind racing, gives you an opportunity to think on your breathing. So I think is it just as simple as that, putting that in place with a little bit of a break?
I mean, you're so right, Melissa. The little step backs really do make a difference. It doesn't have to be take a hike and walk for 2 hours. It can be just deep breathing for 10 minutes, as you say. It can be sort of a cup of tea. It's giving that mind a rest, particularly when surveyors work on so many complex projects, multitasking, so many issues to consider on a project. And it's giving that mind that little bit of a step back. So it doesn't have to be a long time. You're so right.
Yeah. And I think certainly, I mean, and you'll probably confirm this, I think when people introduce those little tiny opportunities into their day and they become regular habits, I think it becomes a way of managing that overwhelm and those feelings of anxiety or stress throughout the day. Just having that opportunity to have a little clear window to kind of reset yourself.
You're right, and it's also sometimes using time management strategies, thinking, And we do have an excellent effective time management webinar, if I can just highlight that for you. And it's thinking, is all of this urgent and important now? Because sometimes we also give equal priority to everything, but perhaps we're not being realistic with ourselves and it isn't possible. So then it's like, which one is the most urgent, or which one can I delegate, or which one is non-essential? You might have that meeting that would be a go-to, I wish I could go, but would you be really missed? Is your input on that meeting essential, or is that the best use of your time? Sometimes it's also looking at things like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point that you've highlighted there, Claire, because I think sometimes we do get we get wrapped up in doing our meetings during the day, but we still need those opportunities to catch up. There's always work that comes out of a meeting. There's actions, there are things that we need to follow up on. Sometimes we just need clear desk time in order to actually get on with all of those little jobs that we've been putting off, and meetings can really get in the way. So I think actually being able to look at them and say, do I actually need to be there? I think that is a really, really good point, and quite difficult at times as well to say no. So hopefully people then can actually get into the mindset that actually if I say no, it gives me more time, and long term that's going to help me mentally and deal with this overwhelm. That's really helpful, Claire. Thank you.
Yes, not at all. And sometimes overload is also sometimes saying no.
Yeah.
And that also isn't easy, because we all want to get on with our careers, we all want to develop, but we also have to think of where things are essential and where things are an add-on.
And putting in those good habits now, I think, will pay off in the long run. I think it may seem like you are putting people out or you're only putting yourself first, but I think it's really important. I think, I don't know how many times I've heard that you need to put the oxygen mask on you first before you help others. I think that is never truer than it is at the moment. So I think having analogies like that is really, really helpful. So in terms of what it is that we can do to support LionHeart, we've talked a lot about what it is that support that we can provide, and we really encourage individuals to get in contact, whether they think they might have overwhelm or not. If they're just not feeling right, I think it's really important, and I think you'll echo this, Claire, just to get in touch. Have a look at the website. Claire's mentioned the webinars. We recently updated our webinar library. It is open to everyone. You can go in and access it through our website at lionheart.org.uk, and there are a number of titles in there that you might feel that are helpful to you and also your well-being. So please do have a look at those. I think it's really important now, before we wrap up, Claire, is there anything else that you wanted to add, or is there anything else that you wanted to say or let people know that might need to reach out to us?
The first thing is, please contact us. That's what we're here for, to help surveyors facing times when they could feel a bit overwhelmed because there's just too much going on. And we would look at your individual situation in confidence. And a few things to think about is, as I said, to summarise of what Melissa's saying, we do have an effective time management webinar with some very useful tips. As Melissa said, and I echo, those few minutes of recharge, what you might call it, those moments of renewal, don't underestimate the value of it. And we would work with you to help you try and fit those in to your day and into your structure. And if you're feeling particularly anxious, well, we have a brilliant counselling team. They would look at how you're thinking, what are your triggers, what would be helpful approaches, and very much look at working with you to find those ways of containing things and working with that. And I just want to also say, as a team, we really are here. We can look at strategies to help you move forward and basically find some control in your life. Sometimes that might be developing plans for the future. So you want to change habits and start new ones. And that would be where coaching sessions can help you keep on track. Other times, We want to work very much in the here and now. There isn't time to think of 3 months down the line. It's how do we get through here and now? And we as a team would look at strategies to help you that move forward, to offload, to look at options and find those best ways forward.
Claire, that was lovely, and thank you for that wrap up. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you today. I have learnt an enormous amount, and I'm hoping that our listeners have too. So thank you all for listening to the LionHeart Talks podcast. I'm Melissa, I'm your host for today, and I have been speaking to our lovely guest and support team, Clare Davis. So please check out the LionHeart website, and please tell your colleagues about this podcast and share it with them. It would be absolutely fantastic to reach as many of our listeners as possible. So I'm going to leave it there, Claire. Thank you so much, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us on LionHeart Talks, and we hope you've enjoyed the episode. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform to hear from us again, and don't forget you can find out more about how we're helping surveyors and their families on our website, lionheart.org.uk.